And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Zach Allison, National Accounts Manager for ATS Spec Tool and our Spec Tool platform, teaching engineers about product and how to use our spec tools all across Canada. With me today is Katie Schmitter, the Multifamily Program Manager, I believe Canada only, for a new manufacturer on ATS, FirstCo, air handlers, PTAC units, all sorts of new products that we're excited to get onto the spec tool. Thanks for joining us today, Katie.
Thank you.
As everyone that's on the call likely knows, as most people are probably returned to our webinar series, we try to take a fairly informal dive into the products today. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A or the chat field. I'll be keeping an eye on that and raise them up to Katie as we go. As with all of our sessions, these are going to be recorded, so please keep that in mind. And with that in mind, we do have all the audience muted upon entry, just for ease of moving things along. This is like I said, a new product onto the ATS spec tool, and we're excited to have it. I think we've got some great configurator tools that we'll show at the end, but really want to illustrate some of the products that are specifically designed for the multifamily category, and that'll tie into a presentation in a few weeks that will be rolling out our continuation of our templates that we've been launching on ATS, which is kind of our ATS masters in a sense. So keep an eye out for the invite to that presentation. We'll walk through our ATS templates, how to use it, the different products that are in it. But without any further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Katie. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Zach. Just a clarification, I am the National Multifamily Program Manager. I'm based in the U.S., and we cover the U.S. and Canada both. So just a little clarification there.
Mea culpa. Mea
All
culpa.
right. No problem, no problem. All right, so today I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We're gonna do a brief overview of First Company in case you're not familiar with the company, and a little bit on the products that we offer. And then we're gonna dive right into the single package vertical units with the integrated ERVs. So just a little bit about First Company. We are headquartered in Dallas, Texas. We're a privately owned company founded in 1966. And all that we do is multifamily HVAC products. We have now close to 1 million square feet in production facilities. And then we also have a new engineering and testing compliance building that you see there on the far right. Where we do all of our ratings and sound testings and different combination of testings with other folks' products on the split systems that we also offer. Today we're going to talk about the single package vertical units, but this is just a little overview of all of the products that we have to offer. And again, we're going to be highlighting on the one in the upper left here, the Eco Series, and then a little bit on the First Pack 95% gas unit. For those of you that are not familiar with what an SPVU is, I'll briefly review that. So basically, it's your normal components of a split system, either an outdoor heat pump or air conditioner, combined with an indoor fan coil or air handler, all in one package in a vertical configuration that would be installed in a closet on an exterior wall. And you basically have all of the components within that unit. What you don't have, and where the cost saving comes in as compared to traditional split systems, everything's completely self-contained. So there's no refrigerant lines to run, no outside electrical that is needed. And when you're using gas units, no combustion air or flue pipes venting out through the roof or through the side of the apartment building. What that allows for is those amenities that the owners are looking for to attract tenants to their apartments. So instead of having a condenser farm, you can have a nice patio or a seating area or a pool, and the units are tucked away in the wall, away from the actual area that the tenants would be using. And then for the comfort portion, that's what we're going to really focus on today, is the ability to provide proper airflow to multiple rooms by ducting the air, like you would with a similar, split system. These units also give you individual control. So rather than having multiple units serve one unit serve multiple apartments, you have one unit serving one apartment. And then with our fresh pack unit, that's where the balanced ventilation comes in. You provide both the supply and the exhaust through the ERV that is integrated and installed in our unit at the factory. I just briefly wanted to touch on the regulatory timeline. The first part of this really applied to the US regulations that were going on, and also the Canadian ones followed along with that. But the next two big ones that are coming up would be the FIR rating in Canada, and then also the refrigerant, the change to the A2L refrigerant changes. So we're well on our way to meeting all of those requirements, and we're a little bit in a transition period right now on the going from EER to SEER 2 and HSPS 2. But as a follow-up to this presentation, we'd be more than happy to discuss these in more detail. I just wanted to bring it up and show kind of the timeline of those events. So I'm going to jump into the closet clearances and installation, and kind of just show you a few examples of how these units are installed. So I mentioned earlier that it is on an exterior wall. It is a single package vertical configuration, so it's all in one closet. And you can see here, there's a regular hinged door here, but you could also do an access panel with or without a return grill. Just a various number of things that you could do there for the access to the unit. On the exterior of the building, the requirements are that we need to have 30 inches minimum of clearance to any fixed item. So whether it be a patio or a deck rail or shrubbery landscape, we want to make sure that we have at least a 30-inch clearance so that we don't cause interference with the airflow on the unit. If you are putting units into a corner like it's shown here, we need at least a minimum of 2 inches between the corner of the building and the exterior dimension of the unit itself. For the inside, for the closet clearances, for the fresh pack unit, which is what we're going to be talking about with the ERV, you need a minimum of 3 inches on all sides, except for the side where the fresh air intake is coming in. And on that side, you need a 6-inch clearance for that unit between the closet wall and the unit. And the rough dimensions for the wall opening are 26 by 43. So that would be on the exterior wall, that the dimension where the wall sleeve in the unit would be installed. And then on the inside, we're looking for a minimum of a 30-inch wide by 84-inch high service opening, so that you can slide the unit in and out without having to take down drywall or doing any altercations to the existing structure. This is the closet dimension for the first pack unit, which we'll be talking about, which is available with a 95% gas, as well as a heat pump and air conditioner. So this one is a little smaller on the clearances. We need 3 inches on all sides, and the rough wall opening is approximately 29 by 45 inches high. It has a similar minimum service opening, a little bit shorter in the height, and that's at 32 inches wide by 45 inches tall. And this one, you would want a minimum of 32 inches in front of the unit, because it actually has a slide out cooling chassis that would need to be, make room for that. Now you could put a couch, or you could put we've even seen people put refrigerators or other things near to that access door or panel. Just needs to be able to be moved in case of service or maintenance. So as long as it's not a fixed item or a wall, then there's no issues with that. This is just a couple of examples of how the different units get installed and the components that are needed. So there's basically 3 components with each of these units. There's the unit itself, the wall sleeve, and the louver. For the Eco Series or the Fresh Pack, it has a pre-assembled one-piece weight-bearing wall sleeve that slides into the wall, and the unit sits in that wall sleeve like a chair. So there's other manufacturers, other things out there where you have to assemble the wall sleeve and then you have to construct a field constructed platform or some sort of seat or support to go under the unit. With our Eco Series unit, you don't have to do any of that. It's already pre-assembled and ready to go once the contractor gets the unit to the building. The First Pack unit, which is on the far right, that one does require a platform and does require that field fabrication of the platform, and the wall sleeve would need to be assembled in the field. So just the 2 different versions of the units depending on which series that you're looking at using. This is just some more examples of what the closet configuration could look like. On the far left here, you have the louvered access panel. On the middle here is just a door with your return air on the side down low here. And then this one on the far right is a louvered door with a hinged door that opens and closes. So just a couple of examples of what you can do for the closet access. This is some examples of what we're able to do as far as blending in the louvers to the exterior of the building. So we all know that the architects are not usually real fond of having something glaringly sticking out in the look of their building or the aesthetics of the building. So we do everything we can to help blend it in to the building. So we have custom color paint matching available. So on the left side in the middle, you see there we've got the louvers painted to match the exterior next to it so that it blends in, more looking like the other penetrations for the windows and doors. And then on the far right is actually a custom screen that is installed over our standard louver. So this would be something we would review with you or the architect prior to it being implemented, but there's a way to hide the louver so that from the outside of the building, you're not really seeing that louver unless you get really up close to the unit, and then you can barely see the outline of the louver. All right, so next I'm going to jump into the overview on the First Pack. This is the model that's available in the 96% AFUE, and then it's also available in electric and heat pump with supplemental electric heat. All of our units are available in this series from 1 to 2.5 tons, and they're rated at 11.7 to 11.9 CO2. Heating capabilities up to 55,000 BTUs on the gas, and then up to 10 or 15 kW, depending on the electric or the heat pump. All the units have a 5-year parts warranty on the compressor and the unit, and then on the gas unit, there's a 20-year heat exchanger warranty. Another nice feature about these units is there is a built-in condensate float switch. So if the requirements are that you need to have some sort of backup or some sort of safety in there for if the condensate drain pan gets clogged or overflows, on this particular unit, we have that feature built in. All the ventilation air on these units are third-party field installed, and then we'll get into the Eco Series next, which has more of the integrated ventilation options. The wall sleeves on these units, like we talked about, they come, you have to assemble them in the field. They are one size fits all for all of the units. And then it's obviously meant to hold the place of where the unit will be slid in and make sure that the opening is plumb and, level so that you don't have any water infiltration type issues or, air leakage into the building. The louvers on these units, so on the far right is the 95% or 96% gas unit. It does have the flue gas pipe right on the louver, so you don't have any external flue. These are what you'd call a direct vent appliance. So you need to make sure that when we're talking about these units that we ensure that the ventilation intake is separated for whatever the local code is, from that flue gas. Usually we see 6, 8, or 10 feet, something in that range. So that's the reason why we can't put the ventilation, on board from the factory for these particular units. The other purpose of the louver is to separate the intake from the exhaust. So the bottom half of the unit, the blades are pointing down, and on the top section, the blades are pointing up. And there is a divider plate between the two sections so that you're helping to prevent the mixing or recirculation, of the air from the two sections. I want to go quickly into a little bit on the 96% AFUE furnace, the condensate system. We have a system in place that prevents the condensate from freezing during the cold temperatures in the winter. So the heaters will be energized at 35 degrees when it senses that temperature inside or near the cabinet on the unit. And basically we've got the condensate run as much as we can through the inside of the unit to further help prevent the freezing of that line. There's other manufacturers where they will run the tube on the exterior, and then you have to have heat tape or some sort of freeze protection on that tubing. We designed it so that it runs inside the cabinet as much as possible to further prevent that heat freeze up, and then also as a cost reduction, kind of one less thing that the contractor has to do during the installation. This just goes a little bit into, there's also a blower function that it will turn on the blower if it senses, in addition to the heaters coming on, there's also a blower function. It will turn it on to circulate the air to try to warm up the temperature within the furnace section of the unit. So that's another nice feature, again, to help keeping that condensate from freezing up in the colder temperatures. And Zach, I don't know if there's any questions or if you want me to, I'm going a little fast here, so don't.
No, you're great. I was actually just about to bring up one of the questions, and we'll pause and see if any additional ones come in. But yeah, just circling back to the installation, you mentioned, install a little bit faster. Is there a big installation savings compared to, say, other models in the market? Is the big time savings per unit? Yeah, I mean, the big one is comparing to other vertical package units, the big savings is going to be in that one piece weight bearing wall sleeve, so that you have the savings of assembling the wall sleeve in the field, number of hours it takes the contractor to do. If you're doing 200 or 300 of these in an apartment complex, 15 or 20 minutes adds up pretty quickly, right, for that assembly feature. And then there's the field fabricated platform. That's also a cost depending on, what it's made of. And, they have to build the platform in the field. Typically that might be done by the GC rather than the mechanical contractor, but it's still a cost and, still labor and material that can be avoided, by using our unit. And those are the pretty big savings. And then until we get into the ERV portion, which that being integrated, there's a lot more savings there as well on the installation of that part. Yeah, that comes together with the ERVs with a really big savings. So we've got a couple more questions coming in. One, I don't know if they're just trying to avoid the Canadian winters and get on down to Dallas for to experience some of the heat, but they want to know whether or not they can visit the facility in Dallas to learn more about the product. Do you have any on-site training there that is offered? They're local in Dallas.
we right now, probably not the best time to visit because it's in the, I'm not sure the conversion, but it's in the 100 to 110 Fahrenheit down there right now. So maybe not now, but definitely come fall. Yes, we would love to have tours, and we have 2 different facilities in the engineering building, and we welcome any visitors to come down, and we can do the tours and then do the product training.
Well, and if they are local, like the one that brought it up, maybe they can come by just to beat the heat. I'm sure you guys have great air conditioning on site there in the training room. So if they're local, we'll certainly, we can get you in contact if you want to do any more additional training for your firm, set up a team visit. I'm sure that we can help out with that. Another question coming in on the exterior louver. And they're wondering whether or not the large louver would cause freezing issues or cold air entering the suite. I think, is that taking care of the wall sleeve as well, or?
Yeah, so basically during the installation process, the wall sleeve will need to be caulked and sealed between the wall sleeve and the wall opening. And then depending on which unit, if we're talking about the, let me go back real quick to that one, this one here. So on the Eco Series, on the unit on the far left, that louver actually is flush into the wall sleeve and attaches and then is pushed through. So there's no additional sealing needing to be done around the louver itself. It would just be around the wall sleeve. And then on the inside, the unit is sealed, like you're not, as long as the wall sleeve is sealed, you're not getting any water or air infiltrating in through the cabinet itself. There is, divisions, and it's sealed off so that you're, as long as the contractor did their job properly on the installation, that's obviously the key there is, there should not be any issues with, introduction of cold air into the apartment or, into the closet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me go back to, okay, so next, it's a good segue. Now we'll jump into the Eco Series. A lot of words on this slide, so I'm not gonna, read everything, but you can see there's a full product offering available of both electric units, heat pumps, and natural gas. And another big unit that we see in Canada used a lot is our AquaPack unit, which is a hot water coil integrated in to the unit at the factory. So rather than using electric as the heat, you'd have a hot water coil to provide the heat. But all the same details. This one is available in 3/4 through 2.5, where the other unit was 1 to 2.5. So we go down to that 9,000 BTU of cooling, get more down into the range of the PTAC and the smaller units there. The unit size is pretty comparable to the 1 or 1.5 tons, so there's not a lot of space savings for the unit. But if you wanted consistency across all the apartments, or if it's assisted living or senior housing, you could go with the 9,000 BTU, just put it in the closet and tucked away so that you don't have to deal with the PTAC out in the room or, out in the space, or possibly providing multiple PTACs, for one apartment. Now these units, we do have the ERV integrated on the FirstCo units, which are the first 3 listed there. And then on the other units, which we're not going to highlight as much on today, there is a like a manual damper option available on all the units except for the gas, which would give you some ventilation. But other than that, you need to go to the ERV model or the FirstCo model to get that fully balanced ventilation. Now the nice thing here is the low ambient heat pump. We're within a few weeks of having that product launched. So the current heat pump that we offer in the Eco Series currently goes down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it would lock out to go to electric heat only. But coming in the next few weeks to a month, we'll have a unit available in this series that will operate down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's something that once we have that information available, we'll, share that with everybody so they have the specifications on it to, look for something to incorporate into the designs. The other thing that we have coming is the 95% gas. Currently, it's only available in the 81% thermal efficiency, but that will be coming in the next several months as well, so that there is an option for the Canadian market and the other, U.S. markets where they're looking for a more high efficiency gas offering.
Yeah, speaking of the specifics for the Canadian market, a couple additional questions coming in. One, circling back to that wall sleeve and just the unit in general, asking whether or not it's is it an insulated wall sleeve, or I guess, yeah, they're concerned about the wall sleeve still.
Got it. So no, the wall sleeve is not insulated. There is gasketing. Let me see, I think this next picture may help show a close-up of the wall sleeve. So that there is gasketing and there is sealing to, kind of make sure that there's a tight fit between the unit and the wall sleeve, but no insulation. Now, obviously the walls around the wall sleeve, would need to be properly insulated, and then the walls around the closet, we typically look for make sure that they're drywalled on the interior of the closet, more for sound attenuation purposes than keeping it warm or not. But we definitely want to make sure that closet is kept at a reasonably warm temperature, just so you don't have any issues with anything. There's nothing really that would freeze up on a heat pump or an electric unit, but obviously when you get into that condensating gas unit, that's when we need to make sure that we've got the temperatures appropriate in the closet.
Yeah, so it's not insulated, but it is gasketed, and the design of it in general is to prevent against water infiltration, wind infiltration, and all of that. So I think I'll let you dive into that, and then when we get to the next one, I'll bring up the next question.
Okay, great. So I think we're good here. So the wall sleeve again. Now this wall sleeve for the Eco Series is available in multiple depths from 5 to 20 inches. So that is a nice feature that as the walls get thicker with the new energy codes and the new standards, we have choices for you. Unlike the other one that we talked about, the first pack, where it's one size fits all. Another nice feature is we have the weather guard for the outside opening. So if in case the wall sleeve is installed and they need to cover up that opening to prevent rain and whatnot from getting in, we have each sleeve ships with that weather guard. And then we also ship with a debris construction guard. So it basically prevents the clogging of that drain in the bottom of the unit here. That you can see the little circle, and then basically that would be removed prior to the unit being installed, and that way you've got a clean, fresh, condensate pan that's not clogged up with the construction debris. These are a couple of the different options that we offer. So if you're not using the ERV or the fresh air, you have the standard wall sleeve on the far left, and then in the middle we have fresh air ports on the wall sleeve. So what this does is it prevents having to have penetrations to the exterior wall for that ERV connection. So I'll go into the ducting on that here in a minute, but basically by using these ports, you're drawing the air in through the louver on the unit, and so you don't have to have those additional dryer vent type penetrations to the building. So again, if you multiply it times 100 or 200 units with 2 penetrations each for this, standard ERV, that there's a lot of savings there, and it's just more aesthetically pleasing for the architects without having those penetrations. Louver is pretty similar to the louver that we talked about on the first pack unit. You have that bi-directional blades separating the top from the bottom. Also available in the color matching that we talked about. We have either standard colors or we have custom colors available for those louvers. And then the next section is jumping into the ventilation system. So I don't know if there's any more product related questions before we jump in on the ERV.
A couple additional questions. Maybe you can go back to that slide that had all the different units on it, just as these come up. So a couple, we'll start with the easy one. Yeah, perfect. Just on the acronyms, looking for some additional clarity. You know, we've got, is it SPAC, HC, PTAC, all these different acronyms. Maybe you could provide a basic rundown of any of the particular acronyms.
Sure. Okay. So SPVU was the first one that we talked about. That's single package vertical unit. And that's kind of the category that most of these types of units are in. Then you have VTAC, V as in Victor, that's a vertical terminal air conditioner. So that's another generic category for this type of unit. And then PTAC, P as in Paul, TAC, that's the horizontal version that you see in hotels and maybe assisted living or nursing home, where it's under the window. And, you know, it's a small horizontal laid out air conditioner. So it's the same concept, it's packaged, right? It's the heat pump or the air conditioner and the supply blower all in one, but it's through the wall in a horizontal configuration, you know, typically under the window.
Perfect. And then
what else?
I believe it was on this one as well when we were discussing that low ambient temperature. So they had a question, you know, for the low ambient heat pump, will it lock out after hitting the minimum ambient operating, or would it continue to work maybe just as a lower efficiency and only energize the electric and hydronic heat as needed?
Great question. So on the new low ambient, there is no cutoff at all for the compressor. So it will continue to operate and provide as much heat as it can from the compressor, because that's the most inexpensive way to heat the building, right? Instead of using the electric heater. So it will run simultaneously. So first it starts with the compressor only. Then if it can't keep up with the compressor, it'll kick in the electric heat and then run the electric heat until it's satisfied, and then it'll back off the electric heat and continue to run on the heat pump compressor. So it will have a simultaneous operation, probably once you start getting below that, you know, 35 to 40 degree outdoor set point, but it's going to be based on the call from the thermostat and whether or not the unit can keep up with the compressor. It'll make the call whether to bring on that electric heat or not.
Great, thank you. And then lastly, focusing more specifically just on Toronto here, although I'm sure there's similar sustainability initiatives across Canada, how does this system help with retrofits? Say, you know, you have to go from a 2-pipe fan coil unit on a multi-story existing condo and move to heat pump system to be sustainable in the Toronto setting.
Got it. Okay, so it would require them having to cut holes in the side of the building to accommodate it, and depending on if there's duct work or not already in that situation, then you'd also have to add some sort of minimal duct work, at least on the supply side, to get the airflow to the multiple rooms. But it's not an ideal, like it's not an exact replacement, for it, but it can be done. We've seen it where maybe like it's a warehouse or a facility that was not apartments before that was turned into apartments, and they add our style of units to provide air conditioning, or maybe they only had heating only, and then they're wanting to add the air conditioning component. So it's doable, but there would be a large expense to, basically cutting new holes in the side of the building to accommodate it.
Yeah, so there's a heavy installation cost, I would guess, is probably the best way to explain it. But as Randy mentions here, this is a new product on the ATS spec tool, but it's not new to Canada. And there's been thousands of these Eco Series installed in Canada, many installations across Toronto and other parts of Ontario, and I believe out west as well. mainly in apartment style, condos, amenity areas as well. So new to the ATS spec tool, not new to the Canadian market, and there's already thousands installed. So thanks for bringing that up. And with that, we'll let you dive back in and head over to the ventilation section.
Okay. Let me grab, there we go. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of show this and show the different types of ventilation systems that are out there, and then kind of talk about where our unit fits in, to this mix. So there's a lot of folks that design systems where it's an exhaust only or a supply only. And the pros and cons of that are listed here. I won't read through all of those, but basically what we're looking for or shooting for is more of that balanced ventilation. And with the ERVs and the heat recovery ventilators, so energy recovery or heat recovery ventilators, you're getting the balanced ventilation, but you're also getting 2 fans. So you're not just bringing in supply or exhausting, you're doing both supply and exhaust. So that gives you the ability to balance the system and also recover the heat and the humidity from the air and exchange it in the apartment, so that you're not just providing untempered humid air into the building and then having the air conditioning unit have to either cool down or dehumidify that air. You've got some benefit with the energy recovery ventilator where you're tempering that air and providing more comfortable air to the tenants. So again, the ERV is one of the balanced ventilation options. That is the option that we chose to integrate with our system. So it's either energy or enthalpy recovery ventilators, which is the acronym for ERV. It exchanges both heat and moisture. And again, it has the 2 fans, so you're bringing in that ventilation or outside air into the building, and then you're also exhausting that stale air either from the bathroom or from the apartment as a whole. And the real benefit is that it creates that balanced airflow, but it does not significantly affect the pressure of the indoor interior space, where some of the other units, if you have just supply or just exhaust, then somebody's got to be able to make sure that once all those components are installed, that it's balanced and you have the proper pressure inside the apartment. And the other big benefit is it reduces the heating and cooling loads caused by that outside air ventilation. Because you're exchanging that air through the ERV, then the unit itself has to do a little less work than it would if you were just bringing in ventilation air, alone on its own. Okay, so a couple different system configurations. You have basically you have single point, a multi-point fully ducted, a multi-point with partial connection to the HVAC, and then a multi-point with full connection. So each of these options offer a various amount of different installed costs, energy efficiency, both from the fan and the recovery unit itself. And then there's varying levels of distribution of that ventilation air throughout the living space. So I'm just going to briefly go through each of these and show you examples of how this could be. You could integrate the EcoSeries Fresh Pack into these configurations. So on the first one here is your single point. So basically you're supplying the air from the ERV to a common place in the apartment. And then you are bringing back the exhaust air or the return air from a master bedroom or a place, where the tenants are going to spend the majority of the time there. So the pros of this is that the ventilation air is coming in directly from the outside and is filtered. It's a simple control system. You don't have to interlock the electrical, with the HVAC system, and there's limited ducting, so that reduces the first cost of the overall installation. The cons is that you're not achieving whole house distribution or mixing because you're dumping the ventilation air into a common area and then you're only returning from one area. So a little bit of a downside to that, but it has to be a balance of what your first cost constraints are versus, you know, what the comfort level that you're looking for in the apartment. The multi-point fully ducted. So this is basically same thing, is that your ventilation air is coming directly from the outside, but you're supplying it to multiple places within the apartment. So you may have it in all the bedrooms or, you know, in the common areas there. And then you're bringing back the exhaust also from a common area, either a hall or a common space within the apartment. So the benefits here is that you're achieving that whole house distribution, still have that simple control feature to it, and it's got a lower operating cost. The downside to it is that higher first cost, because you do have to have that ducting, you know, run throughout the living space. So that does create a little bit higher first cost for the developer. This one is a multi-point partial connection. So the way that you envision this is where you have the HVAC unit off to the side. Our unit would actually be right where the ERV unit is, and it would be integrated into that. So this is showing that you would tie in the outside air into the supply ductwork, and then the exhaust air is ducted back to the ERV and into the HVAC type system. So the cons here is that you have to have a central air conditioning system or a central air handler or a vertical package unit. It is a moderate operating cost, and there are some concerns about, because you're integrating the airflow from the ERV into the supply and return on the unit, there could be some infighting within the ductwork for some pressure considerations that you just got to make sure that those are addressed so that you're still providing the proper airflow and comfort, you know, to the entire space. It does achieve that whole house distribution, and then it is, you know, kind of middle of the road cost with the addition of the, you know, the HRV or ERV system, which would be included with the vertical packaged unit. And then the last one here is a multi-point full connection where you're actually ducting both the supply and the exhaust into the HVAC system. So there are interconnected controls and lockouts required, so it is a little bit more complex of a system. And it, again, achieves the previous whole house distribution, and it still includes that cost of the more expensive single package vertical unit with that integrated ERV. And I'll pause here before I jump. The next slides are more on the product offering, you know, that we have to kind of show, you know, how that fits into these scenarios.
You haven't seen anything come in yet, so maybe let's dive right into that product, the products that fit this, and then if anything comes up, we can circle back.
Okay, perfect. So basically, we talked about the Fresh Pack unit, again, being available 3/4 through 2.5 tons. It is the unit with the integrated ERV, which sits right on top of the unit here. It is available with electric heat pump with electric heat, or that electric cooling with the hydronic heat that we spoke about earlier. This just shows kind of the major components of the unit with the ERV. So on the front here, you have your return air for the unit and the filter, and your supply air for the unit. And then you have separate, there's supply and return fans on the ERV, as well as supply, return, and exhaust connections on the unit as well. So the ERV part is really this front part that sits in front of the supply connection on the unit. I'm sorry.
While we're on the subject of the fans, a question did come in for these ERV controls and asking whether or not there's humidity control, and is that tied to the fan? So if it's very humid, very dry, how does that affect the fans, or are they constant speed?
Got it. Okay, so we have options for third-party humidistats and/or CO2 sensors that can be used to control the ERV. So it would take the call from that device and decide what needs to, happen with the ERV. The one nice feature is this will operate independently from the heating and air conditioning system. So if there is only a call for ventilation, and the thermostat that you have spec'd includes ventilation control capability, you only need one thermostat, one controller. You could add a humidistat or a CO2 sensor, and then you'd have that plus the regular thermostat for the unit. And we have in our installation and operation maintenance manual, we have all the sequence of operation and the wiring diagrams and the details on that. I'd be happy to forward to you so you can look at it and get some more information. All right, so this is just kind of a close-up on the inside of the ERV. There's a removable enclosure, which is washable. And then the core itself is pictured there in the middle. And then there is filtration on that core on both the return and the supply. It's a MERV 5 filter, both washable and disposable. And the nice feature that we have on these hinges is you don't have to make access of 12 to 18 inches on the front for that panel to fold up. They actually, if you, on the side of the hinges here, you can actually slide it to the left or the right and then remove the panel without having to flip it up and have that clearance in front of the unit. So it helps keep that closet a little bit smaller. I think we all probably pretty familiar with the benefits of the ERV, but I'll go over it just in case they're not. But basically, it operates independently of the heating and cooling. It's going to precondition that ventilation air, so it increases the unit's heating and cooling effectiveness. It improves indoor air quality by having that balanced ventilation. And then it may assist with the ASHRAE 62 standards for ventilation for residential or commercial apartment type applications. And then we talked about the filtration of the fresh air and the return air being that MERV 5 filter. So just quickly to review the integrated versus a separate ERV and the benefits of using the integrated ERV. So with the integrated, you are bringing that outside and exhaust air in through the louver, so there's no additional penetrations to the outside of the building. Fewer components to install and easy access to the ERV. So in a separate ERV, it's usually in a ceiling access panel above maybe in the hallway or above the bathroom. Which may make it more difficult to maintain and service that unit. And then you have another access panel from the aesthetics, wise, it's just one more thing that, probably the architects or the, tenants might not want to see, in the apartment. So with the SPVU integrated one, it's all in the closet, one access panel. It's easy to maintain and service from that one mechanical closet. The units are factory wired and powered. It has its own separate control board in the unit, but all the power and all the wiring is already done. Where if you're using a separate ERV, they typically need to be field wired and a power source added for those. So there's additional cost, to that on the installation and then also the maintenance of the equipment. And then finally, the standard thermostat with ventilation capabilities. If you're using a third-party separate ERV, typically they're going to have an additional controller and some sort of wiring that's needed to, between the unit and the controller, in addition to the thermostat for the heating and air conditioning system. These are just a couple of options showing how the ducting can be used through our wall sleeve and louver. So on the far right over here, I'm sorry, far left over here on the bottom, this is where the intake for the ventilation is on the ERV. This would be covered with the louver, you know, for the unit. So you wouldn't see this behind the scenes here. But then it's ducted up through the wall sleeve and then into the top of the unit here, like we're showing in this middle photo. And then the exhaust comes out the other side and comes down through the top here of the wall sleeve. So we have the proper separation between the wall sleeve, the intake and the exhaust, so that there's no worries about making sure that those are separated appropriately. We've already done that for you, you know, at the factory. This is showing another option that we have, which is a sidewall sleeve ports. This will require a little bit larger closet, but still also an option so that you don't have to penetrate that exterior wall. Some of these things, these are just charts for reference, and we'll share these with you in our specifications in the IOM. This just shows you the fan data for the ERV and the different airflows and pressures that you get out of the unit. And then I had a couple of these core reports run. This will show you, based on the city that you select, what the effectiveness is of the ERV, and gives you all the particulars on the moisture removal and the effectiveness of the ERV. So if there's any requirements for a particular city, I had 4 of them run to try to take a sampling across the Canadian market here. But if there's other more specific ones that anyone would like, we can get those run, you know, after the presentation. All right, and then how are we doing on time here? Okay, so these last few are just the wiring diagrams, and I won't go through these in great detail, but it basically just shows you the different options that we can have for wiring third-party controls to our board on the ERV. There's an outside air damper option available, a digital timer switch if you're wanting to use the ERV in lieu of a bathroom fan. There's an option for a digital timer or an old school egg timer, you know, like the rotating, you know, clicking timer that you see in some bathrooms. And then there's also preheater options available. So if you do have those, you know, like we have I live here in Michigan, and obviously in Canada it gets really cold. So if you need to add that additional preheater to temper that air more than what the unit can do, then there is options for that as well to connect it up to our board. And that is the last slide that I have.
Perfect. Well, we'll circle you back because you had a couple more questions come in.
Okay. All right.
That was great. Thank you very much for all the detail. We'll answer a couple of questions, then I'll show you how you can find these products on the spec tool. Couple of easy ones to get started. Is there a noise level for the ERVs inside the suite and for neighboring floors? Any concern with noise? Is there like a decibel rating for these?
Currently, we are testing the sound ratings for the actual units themselves. I'll have to find out what the sound levels are, or if we have those published for the ERV itself. I don't believe that it is very loud because it is a small amount of airflow that's being exchanged, you know, through the unit, and it's enclosed in the unit itself. But I will gladly follow up to get that information if we have it, or ask if we can add it to the testing that's being done right now to, you know, include that in the sound levels.
Perfect. So then I'll lump these two together. You mentioned the preheater. What's the lowest temperature that can operate without the need for a preheater? And then and maybe this is a range, maybe this is based on model, but what's the capacity CFM wise for the ERVs?
Okay, lowest temperature that it can operate. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't have that handy here, but I know we do have like a defrost control, and we have things in place that if it senses too cold of a temperature, that it will redirect the air and defrost the core of the ERV separate from the the heat pump and the defrost cycle. On a heat pump, it has its own defrost cycle on the ERV, but I will follow up and get that answer back for you for sure.
Perfect.
And then there's the CFM range. I believe it's factory set at 50 CFM, and then it goes up to around 150, maybe 165 or so CFM on the top end when you're going into that full boost mode, for say like the bathroom exhaust. But there's different levels of there's comfort, and there's occupied, and there's economy. So there's different levels that it can be set to and programmed to.
Right. And then I'm just going to read this one so we don't miss anything. Can you clarify if the integrated ERV is pre-ducted to the unit, i.e. draws ERV return unit from the unit return, and ducted ERV supplies straight to the unit supply duct? From the assembly drawing, it seems to show the integrated ERV, and it looks like there are separate duct collars for site installed ductwork.
Okay.
So back to the very beginning. Does it?
I'll go back to this one here. So yeah, all of the ducting or the piping that we're showing here is field installed. So we provide the collar and the connection on both the wall sleeve and the unit, but any of the duct work or the piping, if you want to call it, that would need to be done in the field between the wall sleeve and the unit, and then between the unit, obviously, and the living space or the apartment.
Perfect. All right. And with that, I will take over screen sharing just for a second. If you want to stop screen share, and then you'll be able to keep an eye on any additional chats that maybe come in. But I do want to take 2 minutes here. We'll recognize that we're going to run a little bit, a minute or two long, but thank you all for spending your time with us today. If you do want to jump off now, I shared the link for the recording previously, and this will of course be sent out as well as with your certificates of attendance. All of our previously recorded sessions are available if you go to atsspec.com/ATS webinars. Like I sent the link. And this is also in our architects and engineers. If you go to the Learning Hub and the knowledge base section, you'll see the training on demand, where you can access any of our previous categories, whether it's ERV code compliant washrooms, sizing water heaters, sizing pumps, all sorts of product info there, and general design guides. But first and foremost, if this is your first time seeing ATS Spec, it's an online product selection tool that allows you to configure your product, load your selections into a project file. All of this is paid for by the manufacturers and free to use for the engineers or architects or mechanical contractors. It's all tied to your own personal account within a firm, and you can share projects within your firm. This is your loading screen once you get logged in, where you can create a quick spec. Just pop in, you called it ERV, and get into your product selection right away. If you want to apply a rule engine and that has local code, so Ontario building code if you're in Ontario, BC building code if you're in BC, or California building code if you're down in California, et cetera, et cetera. You could put in a project name, select your country, province, approximate square footage, and that ties into our sizing systems in our rule engines, which also starts recommending product, the most popular product for the building class that you're selecting. So if you're selecting a residential project, then you will see the faucets that are shown are more residential looking. Something as simple as that. We have our rule engine that makes sure it meets code, and our product engine that makes sure you're seeing the right product for the right application. Once you create your project, And you can see I've created one ahead of time. I always anticipate that I'm going to talk too much during the presentation and ruin the presenter's timelines. As happened again today, I've selected a couple of products ahead of time. But if you want to add more, you just hit this plus button, and you can see we've got all these different categories within the system. And if you want to favorite a category, you can see we've got the air handler and fan coil unit here. So if I search for that air, it's going to show me all the ones that apply. I can pin my favorites. I can search for our PTAC that we have here as well. I can pin that to my favorite. And now if I've selected one fixture, I want to select my next one, you can see they're popping up here at the top. So once you've favorited and saved your most commonly selected fixtures, you can then unpin if not needed. And then we can go in, we can select our air handler fan coil unit. You can see you got a variety of the products available that we discussed today. So if we want to look at the multi-position and closeted, you can look and review the features and details. We can review the manufacturer's spec sheet directly on this website. So all the manufacturer spec sheets are loaded. So if you want to see any additional details, help make the right selection, and then you jump back into the product selection where you can configure your selection. And all of these options are configurable options, which then we can walk through. Let's say we want a front return. I'm just going to randomly select some here. Hydronic. We'll go DX cooling. We'll do a 2-ton. And you can see it's not letting me select it until I've gone through and configured everything, just to keep that in mind. I'm going to cancel out of the selection for now and show you a different product. So let's jump into the PTAC units that we discussed. And again, you can see once I pinned it, how easy it is to find that next product selection. Again, you'll see the spec sheet integrated into this here. We can look at our Eco series that we discussed today. We can reset that selection and get the integral ERV, where then we can go through and select, let's say we're doing hydronic heating. We'll do, again, a 2-ton, do 2 rows. And now that I've selected everything, goes orange, it's ready to be selected. It configures our model number and it configures our specification. So you're not just adding a blank product selection, you're adding configured selection to your project. If there's any other products, when we're selecting toilets, you would get your toilet flush valve, seat, carrier, backrest, everything you need to meet code. In this case, we just require the one product, so we can go to add next drawing. But if there was anything tied into this, then you could add those additional selections here. Of course, you can edit and change the order, the names. I can call this PTAC 1. I could call this whatever I want. I can change the order so it shows up first. And I can hit save. As these just launched, we don't have the Revit available yet, but we'll be building the Revit for all of these. And then I can hit select all and either copy it into, say, a new project. You can do this with your master. If your firm master on here, you could select your appropriate amenities, and I'll show you how to do that. Or I can hit select all and I can go download. And you can download it in any one of our many formats here. I've downloaded ahead of time because, again, I always anticipate being a little bit late, where we've got our configured selections showing the ones that I selected previously. You get all your installation details. With the manufacturer spec sheet as well, we integrate the manufacturer's spec sheets, not just our submittals. So you can either have our ATS, submittal format or the manufacturer spec sheet format. If you wanted a written spec, we have that in a variety of formats as well. Here's one of our more common ones. We've also launched an option where you can get this without the formatting. So if it's easier, to remove the formatting and copy and paste this into your internal written documents, you can do that as well. Again, all you would do is go down to our long spec format here. We'll click on it. We'll hit exclude page formatting, say I want to download it, and we'll generate the documents. And that'll spin up and download the documents. In the meantime, I do want to show again, I mentioned that we've got recommendations based on application. And I mentioned that we're going to be having a multifamily presentation in a few weeks here, where we'll walk through, a residential master template. I'm not going to jump into it now. Don't want to go past the gun. But if you were on the Class A office building that we did a few weeks ago, you can see our template section available here as well. A couple different ways that you can access this information. And you could download the catalog, or you could start a live project with this. And you can do the same thing by, say, going into our Class A template. I'll use this one for now. And you could get all your drainage. If you're doing the amenities, we talked about this being a perfect product for the amenities area, where you could select the unit that you need for your amenities area, and then select your more public facing toilets and urinals, lavs, water heaters, access doors, floor drains, trap seal primers, whatever it is you need. And you can copy this over to that existing project that we started. And I'll copy those selections in. So if you have either your own firm specific standards or regularly used fixtures on here, that would be located in your masters tab. You'll also have a templates tab, which is the ATS, think of them as ATS masters. It's our recommended product based on application. And all this will help you fill out a product selection in a matter of minutes, which then you can add in your more custom configured items, like your condensing units, the P-tax that we discussed today, or those air handlers and ERVs. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have any issues along the way, you can use our handy chat area here, or email me directly. My email is zach@atsspec.com. Thanks again for joining us. Hopefully that was a valuable presentation for you. I learned a lot today, so thank you very much for joining us, Katie. I thought that was fantastic. With that being said, we have run a little bit long already. So if anyone wants to jump off, we'll just say a quick thank you, and we'll have our certificate of attendance out by the end of the week. Hope you enjoy the rest of their summer. If there's any final questions, we'll stick around for another couple of minutes just to see if anything else comes up. But thank you very much again for joining us, to all those that registered and joined, and to Katie, our partner at FirstCo, with these new products on ATS spec.
Thanks, Zach.
So I don't know, there was a additional question that came in here as I was giving my my ATS walkthrough there.
Okay.
We can always follow up with them if they've left, but they were asking whether or not the exterior louvers are available fire dampers. If not, are the openings in exterior walls treated as unprotected openings like windows? So
yes, no fire dampers are available, and yes, they would be treated similarly to any other unprotected opening. Yeah, that is correct.
Perfect. I'm sure we'll have lots of additional code questions. So again, if you do have any questions that come up after the presentation, feel to reach out to myself, Mo, Mel, Natalia, whoever your ATS rep is that you probably have contact with already. We'll be sure to get those questions relayed and answers back to you. If you want to discuss in further detail, feel free to reach out to us again, and we'll set up this presentation directly for your firm, where you can have a deeper dive, and we'll include, of course, the local reps as well. Thank you very much again, Kitty. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Zach.
Have a great day. Bye for now.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.